If you enjoy my content, please subscribe to the channel and share the videos with your friends. Thank you for visiting my channel. I hope you enjoy the content and join us on this exciting journey. In the summer of 1996, a group of friends decided to escape the hustle of the city and spend some time at an isolated villa near a forest. The villa belonged to a relative of one of the friends, and they were excited about the adventures that awaited them in this serene retreat. Upon their arrival, they spent the day exploring the surroundings, enjoying nature's beauty, tall trees, the songs of birds, and the gentle rustling of leaves. However, as the sun began to set, an eerie feeling settled over the place. The chirping of the birds ceased, and the serene atmosphere morphed into something more ominous. On their first night, the group gathered around a campfire and started sharing ghost stories. One of the friends, named Ollie, recounted a tale about a spirit that roamed the nearby woods, hunting those who wandered alone at night. The story thickened the tension in the air, and eerie silence surrounded them as they listened intently. Around midnight, while everyone lay in their beds, they heard strange noises from outside, a rustling of branches, followed by footsteps approaching the villa. Fear gripped them, and they exchanged worried glances, trying to rationalize that it was likely just the wind. Suddenly, Sari, one of the friends, noticed that one of the windows was ajar. Her heart raced as she suggested they check out the noise. As they cautiously approached the door, the footsteps grew louder and drew closer. Just then, the front door creaked open slowly, revealing a dark shadow standing against the dim light. It was shapeless, abstract, and disappeared before they could fully comprehend what they were seeing. Panic ensued, and they rushed to the room they had been sharing, deciding to turn on the lights and huddle together. The following morning, the group was still shaken but resolved to explore the forest in the daylight. Yet, the deeper they ventured into the woods, the more they felt an unsettling presence watching them. With every rustle of the leaves, they remembered the terrifying stories from the night before. That night, they gathered again around the fire and Ollie told another chilling tale about a woman named Mary who had been a victim in these woods. They felt the weight of the fear pressing down on them, disrupting their sleep and appetite. On the third night, Sari awoke suddenly to find someone standing over her. In the darkness, she couldn't see the figure's face, but she felt it was the same shadow they had seen previously. Screaming, she jolted awake her friends, who quickly turned on the lights, only to find empty space in the room. The constant fear took a toll on everyone, sleep became elusive, and the atmosphere grew heavier. Making a pact to stay outside together during the nights, they tried to confront their fear. Sitting around the fire, the strange sounds they heard spiraled into a terrifying experience. Suddenly, they heard a woman's screams echoing through the trees. They rushed towards the sound only to find a woman, lost and distressed among the trees. She claimed to have wandered too far and couldn't find her way home. The friends, eager to help, guided her back to the villa. As they walked, the woman spoke in a whisper, recounting the stories of a wandering spirit that would forever roam the forest's depths. Each word seemed to deepen the shadows surrounding them. The friends felt a growing dread with each step, realizing they were part of a narrative much grander and far more sinister than they initially thought. Upon reaching the villa, they turned to help the woman inside, only to realize she had vanished. A chill went down their spines, and panic set in. That night, filled with unease, they attempted to pack their belongings and flee the strange place. In the process of gathering their stuff, one of the friends stumbled upon an old book hidden within the villa. As they flipped through the pages, they discovered that the book contained stories related to the spirit of the lost woman they had encountered, depicting her tragic fate vividly. With their hearts pounding, they left the book on the shelf, and as dawn broke, they hurriedly fled the villa. During a hot and enchanting summer, a group of close friends decided to spend their vacation at a remote villa nestled in the heart of nature. This villa was located near a large, dense forest, far from the hustle and bustle of the city. With excitement and anticipation, they packed their bags and set off for the secluded getaway. Upon arriving at the villa, joy and enthusiasm filled the air. The friends spent the day exploring the surroundings, marveling at the tall trees and the stunning landscapes. They wandered deep into the woods, relishing the fresh air and the tranquil atmosphere that the forest offered. As dusk approached, they realized it was time to return to the villa. After settling around a campfire, one of the friends, Amir, decided to share some scary stories. His tales quickly thickened the air with tension and unease, particularly as he recounted a legend about the spirit of a young woman who had gotten lost in the forest, haunting those who dared to venture into her domain. With each story Amir told, the friends' glances became more apprehensive, and an unsettling fear began to settle among them. After that first night, they attempted to sleep, but as they drifted into slumber, strange noises crept in from outside the villa. The sound of rustling leaves and footsteps on the dry ground echoed in the stillness. Initially, they tried to convince each other that it was just their imagination, a product of the tales they had shared, yet the fear steadily grew. On one particular night, while everyone was asleep, one of the friends, Sarah, abruptly woke up to see a shadow standing in the corner of the room. Her heart raced, and as she struggled to catch her breath, she tried to wake her friends. But no one stirred. With fear gripping her, she fixed her gaze on the shadow, feeling an eerie sensation as it drew closer. In the dead of night, she heard a faint weeping sound coming from outside. Unable to resist the call, she stepped outside into the darkness. As she ventured forth, the trees swayed in the wind, creating a chilling atmosphere that enveloped her. Gradually, she realized that the sound wasn't the breeze, it was a woman's voice, crying out, drawing nearer. She found herself irresistibly drawn toward the sound and, carefully making her way through the shadows, she soon beheld a woman in a white dress standing amid the darkness, her eyes fixated on Sarah. The woman continued to weep, saying she was lost and could not find her way home. Sarah felt an odd mix of fear and sympathy, feeling compelled to help. As the spectral figure drew nearer, the woman expressed a sorrowful plea, "I have been trapped in this forest for years, no one has ever been able to save me." Just as Sarah was about to respond, strange noises erupted from the villa, pulling her attention away. She felt a deep urge to return to her friends but hesitated, unsure of what to do. When she finally made her way back to the villa, she was met with an unsettling reality: her friends were nowhere to be found. Panic surged through her as she searched desperately for them, racing around the premises but finding only silence and emptiness. As the dread consumed her, she began to hear faint whispers that seemed to surround her, but every time she followed the sound, she was met only with shadows and echoes. The hours stretched on, and gradually, Sarah realized that the terrifying stories Amir had shared were no longer just folklore, they were entwined with her reality. She was now part of a haunting narrative, trapped within the very forest that had seemed inviting and beautiful just days before. On another night, as she wandered deeper into the woods searching for her friends, she noticed a flickering light in the distance. Drawn towards it, she hoped to reunite with her friends. Yet, as she approached, she saw figures gathered around a fire. When she drew closer, her heart sank. They were not her friends but shadowy silhouettes moving in and out of the firelight, their eyes empty and devoid of life. Sarah's anxiety peaked as she felt a powerful force pressing down upon her. The spirit of the woman she had encountered seemed to linger nearby, and she realized with horror that she was becoming part of this eerie pact. With a scream building up within her, she turned to flee from what had become a living nightmare. After that harrowing experience, Sarah and her friends never returned to that villa. The tale of the wandering spirit and the cries of despair hardened into a deep fear, marking the summer with an indelible memory. It served as a constant reminder that some legends hold an unsettling truth, and it is best to steer clear of places that might harbor dark secrets hidden beneath their surface. The summer that began with excitement and adventure morphed into an unforgettable tale of terror, one that, they hoped, would remain buried in the depths of the forest. The Haunting of the Old Lake House. In the summer of 1980, a group of friends from a small town in the Midwest decided to rent an old lake house for a weekend getaway. They had heard stories about the place, but the friends were young and adventurous, eager to make unforgettable memories. The lake house was situated in a secluded area, surrounded by dense woods and the stillness of the water. As they arrived at the lake house, the sun was beginning to set, casting a warm golden hue over the weathered structure. It had a rustic charm, but the peeling paint and creaking wood gave it an eerie feel. Despite this, the group was excited. They unpacked their bags and settled in, laughing and joking as they explored the house and the surrounding area. That night, they gathered around a fire pit outside, roasting marshmallows and sharing ghost stories. One of the stories was about a woman named Margaret who once lived in the lake house. According to local legends, Margaret had drowned in the lake over 50 years ago, and her spirit was said to wander the woods, searching for something she had lost. Her tragic story was often mentioned as a warning to those who stayed too close to the water. As the fire began to die down, they decided to call it a night. They made their way inside, feeling a mix of excitement and apprehension. The house creaked and groaned as the winds picked up outside, but everyone was too tired to worry about the sounds. They settled into their rooms, oblivious to the strange happenings around them. The following morning, one of the friends, Lisa, woke up early and decided to go for a swim in the lake. As she approached the water, an unsettling feeling washed over her, but she brushed it off. As she swam, the water felt colder than she expected, and she noticed a thick fog rolling in over the surface. It was as if the lake was coming alive with an unseen presence. Despite the chill, Lisa continued to swim. Suddenly, she felt something brush against her leg. Startled, she looked down, but there was nothing there. Shaking it off as nerves, she swam back to shore. As she climbed out of the water, she felt eyes watching her. Looking back, she thought she saw the silhouette of a woman standing at the edge of the lake, her figure blurred by the mist. Lisa squinted, but when she blinked, the figure vanished. Later that day, as they gathered for lunch, Lisa shared her experience with the group. They laughed, trying to dismiss her fears, but deep down, a sense of unease began unraveling. They all agreed to explore the woods later, wanting to delve deeper into the legend of Margaret and discover if there was any truth to the stories. As evening approached, they ventured into the woods. They followed a narrow path that led to the old pier where Margaret was said to have fallen into the water. The air felt heavy, and an inexplicable tension gripped them. As they reached the pier, they noticed old pictures and torn garments pinned to the trees, remnants of a community that had long since forgotten the tragedy. Among the items was a faded photograph of Margaret, a haunting smile across her face. As they were exploring, the wind picked up, and they heard whispers that seemed to echo through the trees. The friends gathered close, their laughter fading as the air turned cold. They felt an overwhelming sensation of being watched, and panic began to set in. When they hurried back to the house, they found that the atmosphere had shifted dramatically. The once inviting structure now felt ominous and foreboding. That night, tensions were high in the group. They gathered in the living room to distract themselves, but after hours of uneasy silence, things took a turn. Suddenly, the lights flickered, and the temperature in the room dropped noticeably. One of the friends, Mark, who had been joking around, suddenly stopped and looked terrified. He pointed toward the window, where they all saw a shadowy figure lurking outside. They all froze, fear coursing through their veins. The figure appeared to be a woman, standing motionless beneath the trees. As they squinted in the darkness, the woman turned her head, revealing hollow eyes that seemed to pierce through their souls. In a panic, they rushed to the door, but it wouldn't budge. It was as if something or someone was holding it shut. Finally managing to pry open the door, they bolted outside, but the figure was gone. They searched frantically, calling out, but the woods remained silent, swallowing their voices. Desperate to escape the feeling of being trapped, they decided to leave the house and head to the nearby town. Their weekend getaway had turned into a nightmare. Once in town, they managed to find a local diner, where they recounted their experience to the waitress. She listened intently before warning them about the lake house. "Many visitors have had similar experiences," she said solemnly. "Margaret didn't just drown, she lost her child in the water before she went in. People say she's still searching." The weight of that revelation crushed them. They had laughed off the ghost stories, but now they understood the gravity of what they had experienced. Just as Margaret's spirit was trapped, so too were they, caught in a web of tragedy and loss laid bare by the legend. Determined to confront the haunting, they returned to the lake house one more time. When they entered, the atmosphere was different. It felt alive, and they could sense a somber energy surrounding them. They decided to hold a small ceremony to honor Margaret and her loss. They found some candles and a small box where they placed their offerings, a piece of clothing, a flower, and a handwritten letter expressing their sympathy for her suffering. As they placed the box near the old pier, they felt a sudden gust of wind. The woods fell silent, and for a moment, everything seemed to pause. They closed their eyes and concentrated, acknowledging the pain Margaret had endured. When they opened their eyes, they noticed a light mist starting to rise from the water, forming what appeared to be a delicate silhouette of a woman. Rather than fear, they felt a sense of peace wash over them. The figure seemed to smile, and the air, which had been oppressive, turned warm and comforting. In that moment, they understood, the lake was not just a place of tragedy but also one of remembrance and healing. They turned and walked away, feeling lighter, and as they drove away from the lake house, they glanced back for a final glimpse. The silhouette had vanished, but they felt she would finally find her peace. That summer getaway, which had begun as a fun adventure among friends, turned into a profound experience. They had faced the darkness and emerged, carrying with them a deeper appreciation for the stories of the past, the pain of loss, and the importance of honoring those who came before them. Though they had sought thrills, they returned home forever altered, with a haunting yet beautiful memory stitched into the fabric of their lives.